Hey everyone, Sean at Wizardline Technologies. I just want to take a quick second to talk about device pay and exactly how that works within the Wizards. So if you haven't noticed, you will be noticing shortly that there is a new column in everything payroll within the Wizards called device pay. It permeates throughout the entire site, the payroll detail, the payroll summary, as well as the payroll utility. So I assume that most of you are aware, hopefully all of you, that Domino's is rolling out this driver app feature. And there are several options to reimburse the drivers for use of their personal cell phones. The first is, well, to reimburse drivers for their personal cell phone use. Another option is for you to provide store phones for your drivers. Then you don't have to reimburse them. And then another option is a combination of the two, which is, I think, what most people are doing. I suppose there is a fourth option where you can choose to not reimburse, but I wouldn't recommend that. So for the rest of this presentation, let's just go upon the assumption that you have decided to reimburse your drivers. So there are really three different ways that you can reimburse your drivers for their cell phone use. The first is a per shift minute for all hours. Pulse has decided to go based upon the minute as opposed to per hour, so I'm just going to keep that wording here. So per shift minute for all hours. The second way is per dispatched order, so you can actually pay them based upon the orders that they actually deliver on a per order basis. And then lastly, we've thrown a third option into the mix called per shift minute, only when they're on the road. So you can see from this quick little matrix here that if you're going to pay someone based upon their entire shift, the per shift minute all hours, you can have Pulse take care of that, or the Wizards will take care of that. If you wish to do a per dispatched order, I'm not going to handle that on the Wizard side. I set that up in Pulse, and then we'll carry it through to the Wizards. And lastly, if you wish to only pay for device reimbursement when they're on the road, that's only available in the Wizards. So there is, excuse me, I'm fighting a cold. So there is a complication, if you will, that with the Pulse setup, you have the option to pay both of these, the per shift minute as well as the per dispatched order, either at driver checkout, so you're paying them cash daily, or passing it through to your payroll, and it's going to be on their payroll check. So how we handle that differs, which we'll see in a second. So in addition to the three different methods that you can pay, two of those methods you can pay at the time of driver checkout each day, or you can pass it through to your payroll. Let's take a brief second to back up a bit and just talk about reimbursement rate. Domino's USA has released what their formula for reimbursement is, and you see it takes into account things such as average costs for a megabyte of data, the average megabytes used by the driver app, the average cost of a mobile phone, the average years you keep a phone, and so it comes up with a total reimbursement for data usage, and then a total reimbursement for mobile phone usage. And so I will provide a link to this document that I'm referencing here in the description below. You can also see it here at the bottom of the screen. So you're more than welcome to take a look at that document, perform the calculations on your own to come up with the numbers that we're going to need in a second. Or the DFA has also recently rolled out with Modus, basically doing all that calculations for you. And so here's an example of what they've spit out. So, you know, they take into account the cost of the device. For here, it just says just a generic premium, how long it takes to the average replacement period, 2 years in this case. And then it comes up with a cost per minute, which is the metric that Domino's is using, and then also a cost per hour in cents. And that's nothing more than taking the cost per minute and multiplying times 60. So you can either do the calculations yourself using the document or some formula of your own, or you can use the DFA and Modus to make those calculations for you. Here we see we came down to 14.33 cents cost per hour. I've seen as low as 13.95 and as high as 15.57. So let's just talk about setting up Pulse. We're not going to get into that too much, but I do wish to point you to a document that Domino's has release called GPS Franchisee Policies, Acknowledgement, and Settings. Again, we'll have a link in the description below. You see the link there. But what this is going to provide you is a recommended team member acknowledgement form, as well as tons of setup details in this 19-page document. So we recommend that you review this document. It is very detailed, and it can be kind of overwhelming, but hopefully we can take some of that away from you here in this presentation. So let's just recap. 3 different ways to pay, either all hours or just on-road hours, or paying on a per dispatched order basis. And either Pulse can handle stuff or the Wizards can handle stuff. And that's entirely up to you. So I guess the question for you is, do you need to take any action within the Wizards? Well, if you're going to pay device reimbursement at driver checkout, then there's really no action you have to take. The drivers have already been reimbursed. There's really no reason for that information to need to appear on your payroll report, so you don't have to take any action. And let's just talk about the Wizard default. The Wizard default is to report all Pulse owed device reimbursement. So if you have set up device reimbursement in your system, either based upon the hours they work or the number of deliveries they take, and you're not paying that at driver checkout, that information is passed on to me, and by default will appear on your payroll report because it is compensation due to that driver. So with that, if neither one of those 2 scenarios are your use cases, let's look at where within the Wizards you can set up some additional detail for how you would like the system to work. So if you start off with the page with the calendars, which is what I consider the main page of the Wizards, and you go Setup, Stores Setup, select one of your stores, and then Report Setup, you will see some payroll report options at the very top of that screen. So the first thing you have to decide is whether or not Pulse will be managing your device pay or whether the Wizards will be managing your device pay. So very simply, just select Pulse or the Wizards. Now, if Pulse will be handling your device pay, you have 3 options available to you. Only owed device pay will appear on the payroll report, or you can have device pay paid at driver checkout appear on the payroll report, or all device pay, regardless of whether or not it's owed or it was paid, appear on the payroll report. I'm not quite sure why you would need that 3rd option, but I did make it available. So again, by default, these are the default settings you see in front of you. We're going to report any owed device pay. Now, if you're paying a driver checkout, but you kind of want to see how much was paid to the drivers, then there's certainly a need for the second option there, which is to show what was paid out at driver checkout. So that is an option available to you. Now, if you're going to have the Wizards handle the device pay, the settings are either for all driver hours or just on-road hours. So those are the 2 options available for you, and then you see the device rate per hour sent put in there, and that goes back to, excuse me for a second, that goes back to this modus report from the DFA that gives you your rate and a cost per cent, and so that's where that cost per cent would go into the Wizards. So what I would like to point out is that even if you don't do split pay within the Wizards, if you select to pay only on-road hours for device reimbursement, the Wizard will still handle that. So even if you're paying the same rate for all hours worked for a driver, you can still use the on-road hours only option within the Wizards. So the only setting that carries over from Pulse to the Wizards setting, to the Wizards device reimbursement, is whether or not the team member is using their own device in the store. So as part of that 19-page document we referenced earlier, this is a change coming to team member checkout, where when you're doing a team member checkout now, if you go Manager, the very bottom option determines whether or not the team member is available for device reimbursement. By default, I believe it's on. You'd have to go through the document for whether or not you can change the default per employee or whatever. But if for some reason, if a driver was using a phone that the store provided, then at driver checkout, the manager could come in here and deselect the device reimbursement option, and my system will not pay a device reimbursement rate for any hours if they were flagged for the shift as using a store phone. So let's just recap briefly here. So there's no action necessary if you pay device reimbursement at driver checkout, because you've already handled that, unless you just want to see the reimbursement on the payroll, even though it's not owed. Or if you want the wizard to report only owed pulse calculated device reimbursement, which is the default. The only reason you would need to go into any of these settings at all is if you wanted to change one of those options. So thanks for your time briefly here today. Hopefully I answered any of the questions you had about how to get device reimbursement to your payroll report properly. These are the links. There'll be, again, a link in the description below to the documents I referenced. And thanks for your time.